I found another clip here. It's
Another big issue in this country.
Obama talking about weed, and he's actually talking about it in a way that he seems to have changed his position about it from how it used to be.
Magically.
Yeah.
Now that 2 states have legalized it and a majority of Americans now support legalization, now he's changed his position miraculously.
Yeah.
How convenient.
Yeah.
Another big issue in this country right now has to do with the legalization of marijuana. You gave an interview to the New Yorker's David Remnick, and you said that you thought smoking pot was a bad habit, but you didn't think it was any worse for a person than drinking. Now that contradicts the official Obama administration policy, both on the website of the Office of National Drug Control policy, and also the fact that marijuana is considered a Schedule I narcotic along with heroin and ecstasy. Now, do you think you were maybe talking just a little too casually about it with Remnick and the New Yorker, or are you considering not making marijuana a Schedule I narcotic?
Well, first of all, what is and isn't a Schedule I narcotic is a job for Congress.
I think it's the DEA that decides that.
It's not something by ourselves that we start changing. No, there are laws undergirding those determinations.
Would you support that move?
But the broader point, I stand by my belief, based, I think, on the scientific evidence, that marijuana for casual users, individual users, is subject to abuse just like alcohol is, and should be treated as a public health problem and challenge. But as I said in the interview, my concern is when you end up having very heavy criminal penalties for individual users.
So this is basically a pretty big change from how he used to talk. A lot of times he wouldn't specify as much as he does now. He speaks more candidly about it now, it seems.
He knows which way the wind is blowing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obvious. The problem with marijuana prohibition is we arrest about 700,000 people a year. We spend billions of dollars. You know, they fill jails, waste time and money. It's just a moneymaker for the government at this point, and everyone realizes that.
Yay, weed. I don't know why it took so damn long for him to say that. It's like, what's the point of even electing people anymore? They're just going to do whatever the popular opinion is anyways.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he doesn't have to run for re-election again has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, you would think it would have maybe emboldened him more. I mean, I guess that they're now announcing that he's planning to be more of a fucking ballsy president who's going to govern more in the George Bush style, which I'm not convinced that's a good thing. But I don't know, maybe that's necessary for things to actually get moving again in this country.
I think Obama's going to launch a drone strike at our house now.
Napalm death.
That have been applied unevenly, and in some cases with a racial disparity. And I think that is a problem. Over the long term, what I believe is if we can deal with some of the criminal penalty issues, then we can really tackle what is a problem not just for marijuana, but also alcohol, also cigarettes, also harder drugs, and that is try to make sure that our kids don't get into these habits in the first place. And you know, the incarceration model that we've taken, particularly around marijuana, does not seem to have produced the kinds of results that we've set.
Oh, gee, you think?
I like the fact that he just said particularly around marijuana, because I mean what he's kind of saying is this sort of applies to our entire drug policy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just wish he'd be a little bit ballsier in making that sort of statement, and just outright say it instead of just sort of alluding to it vaguely.
The people at the DEA are living in fantasy land. If you listen to the interviews with them, they're just like, these are all really bad drugs, and they're going to spread to children, they're going to kill the children, everyone's going to die, it's horrible.
Okay, but look, these guys have put people in prison for this shit for years, and now America's saying, maybe this shit ain't that bad. So, like, what do they look like? They look like
well, then they lose their
idiots.
private prison kickbacks.
Yeah, so we'll play a little bit more of it here.
Note, and I said this in the interview, those who think legalization is a panacea, I think they have to ask themselves some tough questions too. Because if we start having a situation where big corporations with a lot of resources and distribution and marketing arms are suddenly going out there peddling marijuana, then the levels of abuse that may take place
are going to
be higher.
That's really a very interesting statement at the end by Obama about the corporations getting their hands on marijuana and making it another mass manufactured drug. I mean, considering what we did to beer and cigarettes, I wonder how badly giant corporations would fuck up the distribution of marijuana. It's like, hey, let's water down all the beer. Let's add a bunch of chemicals to this already dangerous plant that we smoke. So what are they going to do to weed?
That's true.
They're probably going to lace it with, like, rat poison. Like, this makes the high better.
I watched something about how they processed cigarettes for one of the major tobacco companies, and it looked disgusting.
Oh, yeah. It's
how they
completely
did it, all the
disgusting.
chemical treatments that they give it and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting.
They would do the same to weed. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah, then all of a sudden there would be data that weed's killing people.
People still think that. It's ridiculous. I don't know why. It's like a pretty common thing that you hear. I don't know. At least I hear it.
Maybe if you're like a forklift operator.
TJ, remember
and you
the
smoke,
commercials
like, 10
that show
joints and then go to
how
work.
deadly weed was? The kids would be playing with their dad's gun or something.
Dude, I'm so high. This is like, is this even reality? What's going?
And then they had the drive-through where the stoner like black kids ran over like the little black kid. It was like, oh, they were so high and weren't paying
That's
attention.
like the after-school special right there. You know,